So I'm Sandi, I'm the CEO of Calimero. Today I'm going to talk about some enterprise blockchain stuff, private sharding, privacy, problems with current blockchains. But essentially, maybe to kick it off, how many people here know what is Near protocol? Just to have a view. Okay, sounds good. And how many people know what is Aurora? Okay, sounds good. So like for the ones who don't know, Aurora is a spin-off from Near. It used to be two teams. They created a separate company with support from Near Foundation. And Calimero is a similar project like this. Me and my co-founder Mario, we used to work at Near. We spent 2 years at Near. I was the first infrastructure engineer, built most of the infrastructure, RPCs, permissions, releases at Near. Before that, I was 2 years at Facebook. I spent 2 internships at Google. Spent some time at another layer one, which we're not going to talk about today, but yeah, that's it. So like, let's start with this. Beyond Web3, there's a Web2 world, and like, what does that mean to unwrap it? Currently in the blockchain ecosystem, there's like probably 50,000 developers, which is like not many developers in the world. If you take, for example, Google probably has more developers than the whole blockchain ecosystem has. So the question is like, why do we have so much money in this? Like, how do we get, to everybody in the world using this? And it's hard, because everybody looks at this, like all the enterprises, all these companies, they look at the blockchain space and say, guys, you are crazy. And we are. You know why? When I joined, I worked at Facebook, and I joined the blockchain space again. I was before Facebook, I was in blockchain. Then I came to Facebook, and I went back to blockchain because like I didn't like the way they're like selling users' data. They're like analyzing, who are you friends with, like who do you make transactions with, and all this stuff. And then I came to the blockchain space, and now it's even worse. Like I do a transaction, everybody sees it. Like I have a friends graph, for example, on blockchain, everybody sees it. Like they can analyze all the stuff I do like freely. So like, how do we solve it? Like that's the question of this talk. And just to say, like, blockchains are not privacy-preserving technologies. They are not meant to be, because everybody on the network has to validate some state. They have to like agree that something has happened. Obviously, we have zero-knowledge proofs, but there's like certain limitations what zero-knowledge proofs can do. And somebody's giving a talk, so I'm gonna not talk about this. But one of the things which is a problem, like how do you store the data? Where do you store the data? Like where does the data live? So it can either live in a centralized database, or it can be like all public in a decentralized database at the moment. But like I personally believe that like decentralization is like not a 0 or a 1. Like in anything in life, you essentially have to find compromises. So like what is decentralized, like what decentralization is good enough for some use cases. So for example, like if you have a government, currently the government stores your data in a centralized database. What would be much better if you had ministries running, this mini decentralized network, and they have some guarantees between them, like your data will not be corrupted and that your data will not be whatever. So that's what Calimero is doing. So we are building a technology which preserves data privacy while leveraging all the business benefits of an open source blockchain. And that means that, for example, before you had like Hyperledger, you had all these like privacy blockchains, but like they were never used by developers because first of all, they were expensive. And second, like developers don't like to use like IBM. Developers don't like to use, Corda, for example. Like we like open source because we can maintain it, we can see what it is, we can like build on top of it easily. If I need a feature, I can implement it. It's not expensive. I can run it on my local environment. And essentially, this is how private shards or Calimero came into existence. So essentially, we took the Near protocol and said people like to build on top of Near protocol. So let's build like a private blockchain, which still has all all the properties of what a blockchain should have. Like, you have like certain validators, you have everything, but you can run a private consortium network. So like that means that if you have like Web2 enterprises or Web3 enterprises or governments, or for example, like you work in a DAO, you could run a private shard. So give an example. Imagine a DAO is an enterprise. Like you have 100 people and they're like co-investing. and they're an enterprise, like they're a company, essentially, just a decentralized company. But they all need the same things as an enterprise need. They need accounting, they need departments, they need to store the data. But maybe they don't know each other, they don't want to trust each other. So like what they can do, they can run a private shard and have all this stuff privately, but still have the ability to talk to the public blockchain. For example, I own 100 ethers, or the DAO owns like 100 ethers. This money could be transferred into the private shard, and they could manage and transact between the SAMs privately and then prove on the public chain that something has happened or not. And also what private shards do, they're fully interoperable with NEAR and Aurora. So like, you know, if I want to do a cross-contract call into a public shard, I can do it. If I want to do a private-to-private call, I can do it. So essentially, some use cases. Holding and managing public assets, as I said. Like you have some assets, you want to transfer them for, like you're a liquidity provider. You have like 100 liquidity providers and they want to run a dark pool, they want to trade between each other. They can run a private shard, move the assets there, have, you know, a private dark pool. Smart contracts from private shards can also call into public shards to interact. So for example, I want somebody to know that I am I. So I could have a private shard which has KYC. And I just give permissions for my account. My keys get transferred into the private shard automatically. I do the KYC, and then if I want to use a like DeFi protocol which requires KYC, I can decide if I want to use it or not. Like in the end, decentralization is about choice. So for me, maybe I'm fine with doing KYC. Maybe somebody is not. But like we need to provide these Web2 businesses to come into the space, and we also have to provide regulators some like ability to do this. Also, public smart contracts can also call into private shards. That's the case. Like I want to call, is this wallet KYC or not? Get a result. Private shards can also interact with each other over encrypted channels. So, for example, if you have an AML shard, which is private, they can call a KYC shard first to verify if this person is this person, and then like build an AML, like anti-money laundering based on the transaction, like build a credit score or like something else. But currently it's permissioned. But what we are working on is how do we make private shards trustless? So we have this idea that we could, in a way, encrypt the data, publish it on a public blockchain, and then have validators, external validators, validating state transitions on top of the encrypted data in the future. So even if you have a trusted chain, and they want to steal your money, so like 2/3 of the private shard colludes, and they want to steal my money, I would still have the ability to challenge that transaction, and they would have to prove that they haven't not trying to steal my money. But like that's something for next year. But essentially how it works now. We want to build privacy toolkit on top of NEAR. So you'll be able to like bridge your fungible tokens, bridge your NFTs, do cross-contract calls, and all the tools you have currently in the NEAR ecosystem and an Aurora should work. So like if you're an Ethereum developer, you like already have Solidity contracts, you deploy on Aurora, you get like cheap gas fees, you get high throughput, you get 2-second finality, all the benefits of NEAR. But then if you want also privacy for like some of your use cases or some of your clients or some projects you're building, you can do that. And also like we both support NEAR WASM and Aurora EVM smart contracts. I touched on some of these, but just, you can connect private and public blockchains, DeFis, so dark pools, you can make an NFT marketplace. So like if you're a gaming community, imagine like Epic. Epic sells a game. And then everybody who bought the game, they get an NFT. And this NFT is the proof that you can run a validator on the private shard. So you run the private shard, and then you get a network where money doesn't have to guarantee decentralization. Like we always live by a social contract. So like money is not, the only thing which can guarantee decentralization. So if you have 1,000 people and 2/3 of the people are honest and they don't have a financial incentive to screw somebody over, it can work. So like if I have a $1 NFT and like I just want to do free gas fees and everybody wants to do free gas fees, they could run the community governed network. If somebody tries to steal my like $1 NFT, it's not that worth as much as I would pay for gas fees on the network, even if they do. But we want to prevent that as well in the future. So also we are building like what we call it like extended trust model or like various trust models. So like it's not 0 or 1. Like if you have a high worth assets, probably you want to keep it on Ethereum. If you have like a low asset and you don't want to pay high gas fees for like transferring some very, very like basic stuff, then probably you can go with less decentralization in that case. Also, what we want to do is we want to provide like a software as a service thing for people to manage private shards in the future to like, your core product is something, whatever you're building. So maybe you're like a DeFi project who wants to sell to enterprise clients. Maybe you're like a payroll for crypto. For example, we are working with a company who does payroll for crypto. Like you don't have to like implement multi-sigs. You don't have to implement, you know, all this cross contact call stuff. You don't need to implement streaming payments. So for example, we're working with a company called Rocket. So if you want to have a streaming payment, you should not be implementing this. You know, you should install the app, configure it the way you want it, configure the network the way you want it, and just run it. So how I see like Calimero, I see it like that one day it would be like a unique bridge between like small and large networks, private and public, it doesn't really matter, and like you would have apps running on it. And like a good Web 2 comparison is blockchains are the internet. Private shards are the internet, so like stuff which lives behind the VPN. Some people can access this, some people can, you know, prove that certain things can happen or not. They can have different internets connected to each other. Maybe, you know, you have like one for payroll, and then you have like a subnet for like just managers which can see different things. But like nothing prevents you, you know, to interconnect other private shards and like make them communicate. And like we have few products we are currently building. So Calimero Beacon is the software as a service platform where you like able to like deploy on any cloud or like a set of clouds or hybrids. You install an agent, like pulls down the node, gives you monitoring, gives you all this stuff you probably don't want to build because, I mean, who wants to like manage infrastructure? Nobody except us. Calimero Borealis is essentially the same thing with Aurora integration. So you can deploy the Aurora smart contract on top of it. You can deploy Solidity. All the tools you have like MetaMask, Truffle, Hardhat, Remix, they all work. Calimero Genesis is a CLI tool we are building for managing networks. So you'll be able to, like, in few commands, say, I want this amount of block production, I want like this fast block production, I want to do install certain apps, and like have one config file, which is essentially like Terraform. If anybody's familiar with Terraform for essentially like private shards. And on top of that, we have Calimero Hive, which is this set of applications like we pre-install for you. You can like, no, we don't pre-install it. You choose what you want to use, obviously. And also we integrate other partners. So like Rocketo, we are working, for example, like with AmpNet and some other ones who build solutions for specific use cases, so you don't have to. Like, I really believe that like one day, you know, freemium models will work in blockchain. I also believe that one day, you know, like when internet really kicked off is like when we had all this tooling, like all this software as a service things. So like you don't have to think about your marketing campaign, you know. You don't have to think about like how do I send emails. Like you go to SendGrid, you know. How do I send SMS? I go to Twilio. So like one day you will like, hey, you know, hey, now we have Alchemy, you have like Pagoda in the near ecosystem. You have like Satori for doing NFT stuff. And I really believe like once we build all this infrastructure, it's going to be much easier to first like build products, but also like we need to come to a way where we can like bring users for free. Like if Facebook was paid, nobody would use Facebook today. They would do probably something else. So like we have to find a way that people can easily be onboarded. Another thing, like probably like developers should pay for gas fees sometimes. Like I know it sounds controversial. Aurora launched Aurora Plus, and like I mean it's a hard problem to solve, but eventually we need to solve it. And the question is why? Like if you had Facebook before, Facebook would have servers. They would put them into a data center, small data center in some room, and they would pay for the servers. And that's how they attracted users. What they did later on, like optimizing profit and selling ads, I mean that sucks, but I mean, now we can find better models like for, you know, revenue, I believe. Like in this time it's going to be much better. And people are thinking about like different ways to monetize stuff. And also like Calimero SDK is essentially an SDK you can use to like, you know, do this stuff for like fungible token transfers between the networks for, you know, like implementing some small features we build on top. It's all built on top of Near at the moment. Maybe in the future we're going to have like Solidity SDKs. But yeah, as I said, I really believe there's like a gap. Like we went from Web 1 to Web 2 to Web 3, but I think we should have like a step intermediate, and we have to like backtrack and figure out like, you know, all this regulation stuff now coming into space. Some people like anonymity, some don't. You know, I have a problem. I worked in the blockchain space for a while. I had so many bank accounts closed. every year. Now I opened a new company, I cannot open a bank account. I never did anything illegal. The worst ticket, I had one ticket for, driving a bike over a bridge in San Francisco. The only thing I did ever, wrong. But they don't want to open a bank account because they hear blockchain, they hear crypto, they get scared off, and I cannot run a business like this, You have to go to third-party providers. It's hard. Accounting, it's hard. I have to, every single transaction I ever made, to go to the accounting office. Here in Croatia, they don't even know what is crypto. You go to you go to the IRC and they say oh, we don't know what to do, And maybe in 3 years they realize, oh, maybe we should tax you, and that becomes a problem. So for me, I personally believe in regulations and stuff like this. Some don't, but I mean, that's the point of decentralization. Everybody has a choice and decide what's best for you. But, so what we're building, essentially anything from if you're a crypto native DeFi project or a DAO or a government or an enterprise, and you're looking for a privacy solution which can interact with other private networks or a public network, I mean, find me. We have 12 people here, or 11 people here. Most of them are new because we just spinned out of NIR. I was 2 years at NIR and now we build a new team here. So they can answer some of your questions, but if you really want to dig into how it works, why it works like this, probably find me. Happy to answer any questions, and yeah. Send me an email as well if you want. Any questions? No questions?
Great presentation, thanks. So
made at 3 a.m. So sorry for that. yesterday.
So touching on your initial point, so what is your stance? Why are you laughing? So private blockchains, and it started from one angle, from IBM, Hyperledger, and all of these things, and now it's transitioning into this private sharding. Why do you think that this is happening, and why do you think this is the right way to kind of develop and build this?
Yeah, I like to say that all these old guys, no offense to old guys here, but they're really building, Web3 projects or software with Web2 mentality, and we went, into Web3 and now thinking about Web3, how to solve all these realistic problems, and also I think the interoperability is a big problem. So for us, you can talk to Ethereum through Aurora, you can talk to NIR. In the future, nothing prevents us to take a runtime, any runtime which is compilable into WASM, run it on top of that as well, and then provide if we're gonna live in a multi-chain world, and we probably will, we can provide other runtimes on top of it, and we are really we are open source people building for open source, developers building for developers. I started coding 20 years ago. I was 8. I whole life spent this, and I know I appreciated companies like Docker. Everybody hates VMware. When Docker came out, they were solving a real problem for real people who had this thing, and I think that's why we're kind of different. For them it's about profit. For us it's we obviously need to build a business to sustain and pay salaries, but we also want to solve a real problem for the people. So yeah, that's maybe just a brain dump. Maybe it did answer your question or not, I don't even know. I didn't sleep much, so sorry for that as well. Yeah. Any other questions? Nobody? Was it interesting at least?
Yes.
Go on.
So do you have any implementations?
Yes, so essentially how it works, we forked NIR network. So we took the NIR network, and initially we wanted to integrate it into actually make a private shard, but then we realized it's hard because they're still working on the private shard, the shard implementation. So currently it works through a relay layer. So you have a relay layer between the private shard and the public, and every private shard has a public to private relay layer one-to-one. Essentially how it works like any other bridge. You have a contract on one side, another contract on another side, like client. You have a prover, and then you can prove that certain thing has happened on the private shard or on the public shard. Currently, we plan to launch in kind of September. Currently, it's all we have few private shards. If you a really interesting partner for us, we can set it up for you and then let you play out, test stuff. But we are still like, security audits, we need to figure some stuff out. Currently only limited functionality works, like cross-contract calls, but in the future it's going to be more. Any questions? Yeah, go, Mislav, go.
Maybe from a technical point of view, just a bit of an analysis on your position on how shards and sharded blockchains compare with, let's say, layer 2 solutions connected to an EVM blockchain like ZK rollups or things of this sort. And how do you see the future developing? Do they coexist? Do they compete? Or how does it work, in your opinion?
I mean, yeah, I think there's going to always be a coexistence, like there is some ZK rollups or like optimistic rollups which nobody uses and they have like a lot of problems, with certain things, that's fine. But I think like there obviously there's like Polygon Hermes which tries to do like, build a ZK AVM which can like execute any smart contract, Solidity smart contract, but then they still committed to the public chain. We are not doing that. Like we are actually building, all the state stays in the private shard, and like you can, have like for example, like we are working with the government inside European Union to issue a CBDC. So like a CBDC is a central bank digital currency. So like in theory, if you have government A inside of European Union and you trust it, they could issue a digital euro and you could buy a digital euro, and probably you're going to be better off by buying a digital euro backed by some government in Europe than by buying USDT, which happened here. So like, do we all agree? No? Okay. But what the point is, like still the bank, like the central bank and the other banks inside, they can deploy smart contracts, like they can have all this stuff, they can have their share state. And like we are mostly focusing on like how do we store state off-chain and how do we build smart contracts for like, specific use cases. While like rollups are focusing on like how do you do off-chain computation, Like you have 17 transactions on Ethereum, you want to do 4K, you put it in a rollup, you execute it, batch it, you send the root hash proof and say this is what happened. I think there's like different use cases. And like nothing prevents us, like in the future, like you could use a private shard in the future as well as, like a rollup. Like, like you execute some stuff and then you just send the result back to the main chain. But it's not what we're focusing on. Like we're really focusing on like building smart contracts between entities who don't trust each other, but like they don't believe in like like they cannot do full decentralization because like they want like free gas fees. They have like certain privacy guarantees, GDPR problems for like regulators or like communities, like DAOs or like gaming. Gaming is a good example. So yeah, I think it's a different like angle. Yeah. Yeah, go on.
The three products that you presented.
Yes.
The private shards don't have rollups inside them? Because
No, they have like a near.
it's not 1 or 0, so it's not binary. So it can be a range, and it doesn't need to know the range. So it may well be an optimism rollup, right? A ZK rollup.
I mean, like currently how it works, like you have standard like near consensus inside the private shard. So like you bring your own security into the private shard. So like if you have 100 validators running it from 100 different entities, you would have to corrupt 2/3 of like these 100 people inside the shard. So like it's not like the shard could be corrupted. Like if like I'm not sure if I understand. Can you like explain maybe a little bit?
I was wondering if rollups are a part of the architecture.
No. There's like no rollups. No rollups.
Private shard.
I mean, it works very similar how a rollup would work, but it's not.
Okay.
Yeah, it works like similar. Like rollup like works similar to like how a bridge works. Like it's a similar mechanism of like proving certain things. It's more like a plasma chain. Like if you know like plasma chains, like then do you know like plasma chains maybe? Like on Ethereum, like Vitalik had this initial concept of like plasma chains that you have like Ethereum networks which like stack to each other and they can talk, and then like more similar to that, I would say.
Like a relay or bridge.
Yeah, you have a relay in between. Yeah. That's like the idea. If more similar to that, I would say. Yeah. Okay. No questions more? Yeah, if you want to learn more, I'm much better talker when I'm not on stage. So and I have some sleep, so please find me later on.